Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's body image and fitness coach. Today, I'm chatting with the lovely Sheradyn Dekker, who's a functional nutritionist, who's on a mission and has been on a mission for quite a while, who's helping women overcome gut pain and fatigue to feel energized. And Sheradyn and I met in Bali earlier this year in July through the WFA retreat. And I tell you what, she is your go-to woman if you have any gut health issues or you're wanting to repair your gut health. So Sheradyn, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Sig. Good to see your face again. Just when you're like, I see you thinking about July, and I was like, wow, it's really gone so fast. Like, I know this year and a whole has sped by, but then also I'm like, has Bali been and gone already? Like, that just seemed like yesterday that we're all there sitting around the pool and talking about fitness and going out. So crazy.
I know, it is. Time flies. I don't know if it's because of the age or it's just literally it's all happening. It happens so quickly. And I think this is something that as humans, we really need to embrace every freaking moment that we have, because it like literally disappears so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Do what you love because life's short.
100%. Speaking of doing what you love, what got you into becoming a functional nutritionist?
Yeah, so probably more my health journey. It's interesting whenever you chat to someone in the health realm or space, you go, why do you do what you do? And it's like, well, because X, Y, Z. Like, we all seem to have these stories around our health or body image or fitness. And that's really what's pushed us to sort of start our businesses and help other women. And for me, my passion growing up was always sport. And I was like, I'm going to do exercise science because I love being involved. I played a lot of soccer, a lot of surfing, a lot of outdoor rec stuff. And then when I turned 18, I actually went to Bali, which ironically, went overseas. I got Bali belly really badly. I ended up with a couple parasites, bacterial overgrowth. But I didn't know this at the time. So I just came home with classic Bali belly symptoms, a lot of painful bloating and loose stools and then constipation. I was all like, I don't know what's going on. And then I got glandular fever a couple weeks later, and I was like really sick for quite a long time and still couldn't figure out why I was sick for so long, and then why I still had all these gut symptoms, because they're not classic of glandular fever. And prior to being to Bali, I'd never had a gut issue in my life. We grew up healthy. I ate lots of bread. Like, it just wasn't an issue at all. Then I lost my periods, and I actually didn't get them back for, what was it, about 8 years. So it was kind of this combination of stuff where I was like, okay, well, I'm not having my periods. I've got these gut issues. I've got some kind of immune issue. And then I started getting really severe acne, really severe fatigue. I was trying to do CrossFit 5 or 6 times a week, and I was just not recovering well. So I had this combination of things going on, and I started went to your doctor, went to your gynecologist, went to medical specialists, and sort of going, what's going on with me? I'm in my early 20s. I eat really well. I'm into sport. I exercise. Like, I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not getting better. Anyway, I started, I guess, going down that medical route and not getting answers, running the blood tests, doing MRIs, doing bone marrow biopsies, and just looking, going, what is wrong with this girl? Always coming to a dead end. So eventually, like a lot of people in my circumstances, you take it into your own hands. You start listening to podcasts and reading books and searching outside that classic health realm, which is when I came across functional diagnostic nutrition. So at this point, I'd done 3 years of sports science. I'd done my master's of nutrition. Then I came across functional diagnostic nutrition and was like, I need to study this. Started studying that, and that's when I came across stool testing and SIBO breath testing and comprehensive urine testing, and was like, there's deeper causes going on here. It's not just, that I'm stressed, which the doctor said, or, and that's why you've got gut issues, or I don't just have IBS, or I don't just need to go on the birth control pill because I don't have a period. It's actually my body was in complete burnout. I had all these fungal overgrowths and parasites and imbalanced bacteria and leaky gut and inflammation. And I was like, oh, there's an answer for what I'm, experiencing. And it's interesting now when I chat to women that they have the same thing and they go, oh, well, like, I'm so glad you say this, because that's exactly how I feel, that there's answers of the stuff I'm struggling with. Like, it's not just in my head. And so often a GP will be like, well, it's just IBS. There's nothing you can do about it. Just take some more fiber or drink some more water. Maybe you need to exercise a bit more. And for the general public, maybe that's true. But for the women I'm talking to and dealing with, they are doing the right things and they are eating really well, and they've still got gut issues. And that's where I found that mismatch was. It was like, okay, well, when you are exercising, you are doing the right things, why are you having all these issues still? So it gave me answers beyond that. And when I started treating my gut and treating those infections, then I had regular bowel movements. I wasn't bloated every day. Like, things got so much better. I could digest food better. I had so much more energy. And then on top of that, I got my periods back once I supported the low progesterone and worked on the adrenal glands and worked on that stress output and started eating enough food, because I always had such a painful sore stomach. I wasn't eating a lot because I just didn't want to eat. And when you're constipated for like a week, you lose your appetite. So the under eating was driving the whole thing, and it was just this chronic cycle. So when I started to slowly introduce more easy to digest foods and went down that route as well, and put on a bit of weight and just nourished my body more, and also because I'm such an A-type personality, took away some of the pressures of, got to do this at uni and got to be the fittest person and got to eat the best and got to do all those things. So in that whole holistic kind of approach, I guess I healed myself out of a lot of that stuff. But yeah, so then I was like, right, we need to change the health industry, because this is not good enough. Women can't just be going, put on the birth control pill just because they don't have a period, or be told they've got IBS when there's underlying issues going on there. And that's when I started my business and helping women sort of get to the root cause of what is driving their imbalances.
I love everything about this, because I can relate to this so easily. Because I remember the first time I had belly, I literally was like, oh my God, this is terrible. But like yourself, you don't realize the consequences post having it. I had all the symptoms, you like the diarrhea, the vomiting, the sore stomach, the bloating, the constipation, whatever. It was like a vicious cycle, like towards the end of a trip, like many, many years ago. But then once you come back home, I was still experiencing those symptoms like yourself, and trying to figure out what's happening. And no one really had the answers to that till eventually you actually, see someone like yourself who does those tests, and you're like, oh, I do have a parasite. Oh, I have bacteria in my gut. This is why I'm feeling like shit. This is what's happening. So it's really cool for us to have this conversation to make women realize that, hey, it's not in your head, and please don't let other people just dismiss how you're feeling. Like you said, with IBS, it's so common that people are mistreated around IBS because they don't look into the actual root cause of what's actually happening in their gut.
Yeah, and the amount of times I hear women say that it's genetic, like, oh, but my mum had IBS, therefore I've got IBS. And I'm like, well, that's not actually how it works. Like, there might be other underlying autoimmune conditions that you've sort of inherited, or maybe you've got a more of a stressful nature, and therefore you're more prone to being constipated or loose stools, depending on what's going around you. But you don't actually pass on IBS in a sense. It's probably, either if you've had it from a really young age, and it might have come from birth, because you get your mother's microbiome in that sense, and you might have been born with an imbalanced microbiome, maybe if you're a cesarean baby or something like that. But usually it's something we get as women post puberty type thing, like once you sort of I don't know, I think about most women, early 20s is when I see it start to come on, like changes with birth control pills, start to travel, drink more, but also exercise more, maybe restrict your food more, worry about body image more. Like I feel like there's so many other components and layers around it that it's not classically you see something, in someone in their 10, 11, unless they've actually got celiac. So I feel like it's not so much that my parents had it, it's more that I've either picked up a bug or my environment has led me to being, stressed enough that it's affecting my gut.
And we know stress has a big correlation with gut health. And usually, like yourself, I know you're very big on this on your social media, making people realize, hey, it's not always just about the foods that you're eating. It's your environment, it's your stress. Like you said, like it could be body image, it could be weight, it could be your history of like eating, like anything. And those type of stresses, like type A personalities over here, that affects our gut health really, really negatively.
Yeah, completely. And I think there's always two layers to it. So I always say to people, there's the physical symptoms, like your stomach hurts, so you get more stressed about going out and being with people and that side of thing, like that whole body image aspect around it is really negative as well. Like, you're like, well, I don't want to wear that dress because my stomach looks crap in that because I'm bloated. And sometimes it's purely just you don't like the size that you are at that particular time. And other times you see these photos of women and you would experience the same, when you have that big, like pregnant belly from having a SIBO bacteria overgrowth or having parasites or something, or being so constipated that it's this whole physical outlook of, what's actually going on. And then that whole internal stress of going, well, your large intestine is so inflamed and there's parasites and there's bacteria and there's like a war going on inside your gut there. So you kind of have this mental side of things and then also this actual gut internal side of things. And we also know the type of bacteria we have in our large intestine also impacts our neurotransmitters and our dopamine and our serotonin. So everything's connected. There's no getting out of it.
Yeah, it's so true. When it comes to, we know obviously, as we mentioned, like speaking of stress and gut health, what are some things that usually stand out for you when you are speaking to clients and something for them to monitor around stress? Because we've already mentioned like around the body image side of things, that's a big one for women. Like that comparison syndrome, us not wanting to be in an environment because we're feeling self-conscious. But sometimes it's more, I don't know if you've witnessed this, but it can be also psychological around the foods that we eat as well.
Yeah, there's definitely like there's kind of two components. There's like self-imposed fear around food, and then there's real fear around food because from like a scientific aspect, if I've got a SIBO infection, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and I eat garlic and onion, it can and generally will upset my stomach and give me symptoms. So then whenever you're going out, you've got this fear. What if there's garlic and onion in there? Because I'm going to either be running to the toilet or severely bloated, in a lot of pain, cramping, or constipated for the next 3-4 days. So there's that side of things. And then there's the side of things where women sort of don't actually know what their triggers are. So then you're just scared of nearly everything all the time. Yeah. And that's actually just as bad in a sense, because if you're at home, you can control every single thing that you're eating and every single ingredient. So you can kind of minimize those reactions. But as soon as you go out or you go traveling or you go to someone's house, all of a sudden you have this constant, and it's almost pulls into like social anxiety because you actually can't relax because the whole time you're just thinking about what's going to be in the food, how do I get out of eating it, or what am I going to be like after, or, like trying to play around with those reactions, which is a headspace thing for sure.
It's so relatable and this is a really good reminder for everyone to get tested, literally, because if you're playing the guessing game, it's not going to get you anywhere. This is why we have women like Sheradyn, like exactly why. But seriously, like I remember years ago when I had issues with my gut health, I was constantly bloated. I couldn't eat onions, couldn't eat garlic, couldn't eat certain types of carbohydrates because I was just constantly bloated and just, oh, it was awful. And then one day I was just like, I need to look into this. So I ended up getting tests. I got like bloods, I got stool tests. Oh my God. Looking at your stools, not obviously like physically, but like the test itself, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating to know like what's happening. And then with the right professional, they will be able to help you to say like what supplements you need, or, what type of food regime to help you minimize all of the stuff that's happening. And that's where less stress comes from when you're, self-imposed or like eating out.
Yeah, totally. And there's like, with that stool testing stuff, when you see the report and you actually go, this is what's going on. One, it gives you like this affirmation kind of thing of, okay, what I'm experiencing isn't just in my head. There is a component of that, but there actually is stuff going on. So that's really nice to see as well. And to be able to tell people, like, because your friends and family, or I had it when I was going through my stuff, I was just like, oh, Sweaty Sheradyn, just trying to be too healthy or trying to be skinny and not eating food. And I was like, I literally get put in so much pain when I eat that food. So please don't dismiss my symptoms. So you can go, actually, I've got a bacterial overgrowth that I'm working on, Like you sort of got something, but also you feel like you've got a plan. Then you're like, okay, well, first we deal with parasites, then we deal with bacteria, then we deal with yeast. So someone has this timeline to work through. Then we rebuild and repair and re-nourish the microbiome, rather than just feeling like, again, either you're guessing day to day, you're avoiding foods aimlessly, or you don't really know what's going on. So it's interesting, but it also gives you a plan moving forward, which is so nice.
100%. Yeah, don't play the guessing game, girls. It literally gets you nowhere. Seriously, like,
no. And especially with stuff like SIBO as well, like that small intestinal stuff where you're bloated all the time. And women wake up bloated. They haven't even eaten anything. And they're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, just get it tested so that you know, and then you don't need to feel shit every morning.
Yeah, so annoying. Speaking of shit, we know the importance of going to the toilet every day, and not just because of like importance for gut health, but for our hormones as well. And I recall many years ago, I used to go to the bathroom probably maybe once every 3 days, and I thought that was the norm. This was literally years before I even got into the health and fitness industry. I was like, yeah, this is normal. Like, everyone does this. And then once you start reading more about it, and once I started practicing, coaching, I realized, oh no, like you need to go to the toilet every day consistently. And again, consistently looks different to everyone. But from my understanding, we want to make sure that we're going to the toilet first thing in the morning, or within like the first few hours of you waking up.
Yeah, exactly. So there's timing, and then there's like how much, and then there's obviously stool consistency as well, because some women I'm seeing are having 4, 5, 6 bowel movements a day, and they're all really loose because they're really triggered, and maybe it's from caffeine, like we all know about coffee poops. But you can push that too far, and then maybe it's other stimulants, or maybe it's lactose or dairy. Like for some women, they're just having quite loose stools all the time. And if you're listening, just Google later the Bristol stool chart and have a look and sort of see where your stools fall on it, because we want sausage-like formed stools. And if you can have that 1 to 3 times a day, sort of anything beyond 3, I'm starting to go, well, either you're having too many like prebiotics like lactulose or something that's sort of, it's good, but it's just too stimulating, or, laxatives, or maybe too many probiotics, or too much caffeine or other stimulants that are telling your bowels to sort of move, even too much fiber sometimes. So sort of go 1 to 3 times, and then a formed stool. And like you said, every single day, because every single day you are eating and ingesting and creating toxins that need to be removed. So you're creating hormones. We've got excess hormones we need to get out of the body. We're in these environments where we're constantly exposed to pollutants and toxins and stuff in our food. Even if we're eating a clean diet, there's still things in there that need to be removed. So that's why your body's created to have a bowel movement. And if you think about going through your hormonal shifts in your hormonal cycle, and you've got estrogen, for example, which we need to get rid and move out the body, and it goes through phase 1 and 2 of the liver. We break it down, we package it up in this nice parcel, and it's ready to get taken with the gut and pooed out. Well, if that's not happening, or you don't have enough good gut flora to bind estrogen properly up in those last stages, it just gets reabsorbed. So either it can sit there in the stool for too long and your large intestines reabsorbs the estrogen, or you don't have a good enough estrobilome's the term, so a microbiome that actually binds up that estrogen properly and then also gets reabsorbed. And if we're reabsorbing estrogen, we're seeing things like your breast tenderness, your mood swings, your heavy, painful periods, fluid retention, weight gain, constipation, PMS, all that kind of stuff, which often can just be from not pooing enough because you just can't remove that estrogen.
That's a big one. And we know that usually through the last phase of a cycle, it's very common for women not to be able to go to the toilet, 3-4 days or even like sometimes a week prior to the period. So it makes so much sense right now that if we don't have sufficient gut health to promote, that excess estrogen to be pooped out, these are some of the causes of why we get these symptoms. So a little bit of, food for thought for everyone, like going, cool, well, like what changes do you need to make? What are some, I know like it's very specific for every individual, but what are some common ways that someone can find, a little bit of ease at pooing during that time?
Yeah, it's interesting because so many women say, well, if I cut my coffee, I can no longer have a bowel movement. I'm like, well, you should enjoy your coffee, definitely, but it shouldn't be the root cause of you being able to have a bowel movement. So your basic line things are: 1, are you drinking enough water? So you're drinking a couple of liters of water per day. 2, if you're doing that, are you having enough fiber in your diet? Because again, you need enough fiber to create a bowel movement. So that looks different for everyone, but your couple pieces of fruit, your bit of veggies at every meal. It doesn't need to be crazy amounts, doesn't mean every meal needs to be a big salad, but just make sure there's whole grains, or there is some nuts and seeds, and like I said, veggies. Raw carrots are a big one. 2 raw carrots a day is one of my prescriptive things for my clients if they're not pooping. Kiwi fruits, 1 or 2 kiwi fruits a day will help you poo. So again, that fiber aspect, and then movement. If you are sitting every day and not moving at all, like think about when you travel and you're sitting for a long period of time, often we get constipated because your bowels need regular movement as well. Your whole body needs that movement. So there are your kind of 3 basic ones. And then if you're still not having a bowel movement, then where am I at my menstrual cycle? Is it a hormonal thing causing it? Like, is it just for a couple of days and then I'm back to regular poops? Or if it's ongoing, do I have other gut issues? Like, do I have stomach pain? Do I have bloating? Do I react to foods? And then go, okay, is there something deeper going on? Like for me, it was the SIBO and it was the large intestine stuff. Some people, it's just a food allergy. Some it's just gluten. Like I became sensitive to gluten after having all my gut stuff. So now if I eat gluten, I'll be constipated for a couple of days. So sometimes it's just a food trigger. Other times it's a stress thing. Women are at work, and every day when they go to work, they don't want to poo at work. And they also, which is like, you hear it all the time, but then they won't go in the morning, and then they're stressy all day at work, and they won't go at work, and then they come home and you're straight into dinner and prepping and this and that. So your body actually doesn't have a chance to go, it's okay, I can relax now. And then as soon as they go on holidays, their bowels are fine. So there's those kind of things. Sometimes it is the deeper stuff and you need testing. Sometimes you just need to address the baseline things to go, Shivers, I haven't eaten some fruit in a few days, or had enough veggies, or I've just been snacking on processed foods or having protein shakes with nothing else in it. So ensuring you have those things, and then going, chuck in the raw carrots, chuck in the kiwi, chuck in a bit of flax or LSA, or, just a bit of extra fiber on even your yogurt and stuff like that can help you have a bowel movement.
They're such useful tips. I remember when I started introducing kiwi fruits, it was a game changer.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing, yeah. Like lots of people go, oh, as soon as I do that, or soaked chia seeds, like 1 tablespoon of soaked chia seeds. And I have clients who are just like, this is great. Like I'm pooping every day now. And I'm like, sometimes it's just the little push your bowel needs.
And it's so funny that you mentioned how with women usually, in the morning we kind of don't feel like going to the toilet, but then we get to work and or like a public, place, you're like, oh no, I can't do this. And it's funny because it literally reminded me of when you get into a new relationship and you do not want to go to the toilet at his place. You just don't feel comfortable. That is also a cause for your bloating and gas. Like, girl, just fucking unleash the dragon.
Yeah. So often you hear that in the new relationship stuff. And the longer we hold on to our poop, like go, no, I'll wait for a better time, the more it upsets the bowel, because your bowel loves routine. Like it loves that consistency, and it loves knowing when you're going, and you'll get into, like, I wake up and I'll have a bowel movement, and then I'll have, mid-morning tea, and I'll have a bowel movement, I'll have lunch, I'll have the bowel movement. Like your body will start to learn when it likes to go, and generally it might be after a bigger meal, like after lunch or something, because it stimulates peristalsis, which stimulates movement through the bowel. So then it pushes out your last kind of meal and, puts your new one to start digesting. So it can be stimulated by food, but sometimes it's nice when you wake up, you have a bowel movement, and you start your day and off you go. And if you're changing that routine, then either you need to just give yourself a little bit more time when you're in a new space or traveling or something. Go, your body knows what to do. Just go sit on the toilet, and it might be a little bit longer than normal, but just let your body relax. Go on your freaking phone if you have to, but let your body relax and know it's okay. We're still in the same routine. We're just in a different space. So sometimes it just needs that reassurance.
Yeah, your body knows. Your body knows. You can't fight it. And I'm so glad that we open this conversation around this and letting women understand that your body likes routine. So when you disrupt that routine, it's going to need to get used to the new routine. So as you said, it may take a little while, but eventually it gets used to it and adapts to the new environment.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like I said, like if you do have underlying gut stuff going on, once you start treating that and you have more bowel movements and you start pushing those toxins and things out, once you go through that healing stage and you rebuild it and repair it, you can create that routine. Because I know for a lot of women, they're like, I'm spending like an hour on the toilet before work because I just want to have a bowel movement before I go to work, because you feel so crap if you don't sometimes. Like a lot of women, like, I just feel sore in my stomach, or I feel bloated, or like I can't eat until I have that bowel movement. And I get that because I've been there, but sometimes we need those supplements and we need to do that work before you can get your body to a state where it's having that. Because what's happening is that you're eating foods, let's say you've got SIBO, so small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, you're eating these foods which are getting fermented by the bacteria in your gut, so it's producing gas. And when we produce gas, then it's harder for things to move through, and the gas is what produces the bloating, creates air pockets, and stops things moving through your gut. And then at some point, well, if they're different carbohydrate chains, they pull in a heap of water. So some women get loose stools and diarrhea, and that's more from the maldigestion of these carbohydrate chains. It's just pulling in all this water and your body's pushing it all out. So depending on what aspect you're at, but usually there is that bacterial microbiome issue. It's not always, stress, and it's not always structural, because sometimes people do have funny shaped bowels and things which can cause this issue, but often there is just a fermentation going on inside. And that's why when you do, say, a breath test and you breathe into these little bags and you capture the hydrogen or the methane gas, we can go, hey, these gases are produced by these bacteria in your gut. These bacteria respond to oregano or berberine or alicillin or whatever it is, and we can treat those bacteria so that things can move through. Because you also got to remember, if you're constipated or having loose stools, which means that you've got a bacterial imbalance, all your nutrients get absorbed in your small intestine. So if you are not digesting food in that small intestine, I don't care if you're eating the best diet in the world, you're not getting your B's, you're not getting your iron, you're not getting your vitamin C. So it's this whole compounded issue, which then impacts your hormones and immunity and skin and everything else. And then you're going, this is why the gut is key to everything.
Yeah, 100%. I had a really good question regarding the stomach. No, it wasn't fermentation. You mentioned earlier in the conversation how the stomach sometimes makes sounds within your gut. You know, so it feels as if like you're farting, but you're not. It's just like little bubbles of gas. That is that also an indication of like something's just not right with the stomach, or is it literally just something it's trying to digest the food?
Depends if there's bloating or pain with it. Like if there's bloating, then I would say, yep, there's too much gas. If it's just the gurgling, sometimes it's just your body doing its thing and breaking stuff down. And, you know, because either way, food needs to be broken down. And in a healthy gut, there is a lot of bacteria anyway, but it's just when there's, you know, what we just call loosely bad bacteria, that you get that fermentation and that gas. So if someone's got gurgling, wouldn't worry about it. If you've got gurgling and bloating and pain and constipation, then I'd be like, probably not a good thing.
Okay. Good to know. We also spoke about coffee, how women, you've had clients in the past come to you saying that they can't, well, not that they can't live without coffee. Well, we know there's a lot of women out there who can't live without coffee. But when they cut coffee out, they find themselves not going to the toilet. However, we know that a lot of women and men, like people in general, use coffee as like a natural laxative because they can't use the toilet. In my eyes, that's a red flag. Obviously, in your eyes, it's a red flag. So what's something that we can help them realize if you can't live without this, you know, like what else can they do to mitigate that?
Yeah, so I mean, coffee's got so many different aspects, doesn't it? It's like mood enhancer and energy and stimulant. But I think the big things of coffee is that from that point of view, like mood and energy and thinking about blood sugar levels and cortisol, coffee can be really damaging in a sense because your body, it'll spike that cortisol response and then that'll play around with your blood sugar levels, which can sort of stuff hormones. But from a gut point of view, if you're using coffee to have a bowel movement, and you need to identify if you are using coffee, because sometimes it's not the caffeine. Sometimes it's like just the routine, like you have your coffee, you have a bowel movement. So go decaf for a couple of days and see if it's actually stimulating, whether it's just sort of placebo effect. So there's that side of things. Otherwise, remove your coffee for a couple of days and go, okay, well, you know, I'm constipated, or I will not have a bowel movement until I have a coffee. And if I don't have the coffee till 12 o'clock, I won't have a bowel movement to 12 o'clock. Then you go, okay, well, there's something deeper going on there. So if you need, you know, if you've addressed sort of those key things and gone, okay, well, I am eating enough fiber and drinking enough water and doing all those things, and you need a little kicker to help you have a bowel movement, then, you know, sometimes you can look at things like magnesium citrate, which will draw water into the bowel and help you have a bowel movement, or a bit of lactulose, or which is a prebiotic for your good bacteria. So things that will just help encourage your body to have a bowel movement without using laxatives or without using coffee. But then also going, well, this is a red flag. So then I would be going, okay, I've addressed the basics, I need to go get a stool test. So then reaching out to a naturopath or a functional nutritionist like myself, or a GP, more of a probably integrative GP, because your standard GP won't do it. Do a stool test, comprehensive stool test, and do a SIBO breath test to figure out what is actually causing that constipation.
There you go, girls. There you go. Keep an eye of that coffee intake.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, because then we get addicted to it, right? Like, and then we have 2 or 3 coffees a day, and then all of a sudden it will change your bowel movements. Like, even if you don't react to coffee, like say you're someone who goes, whether I have a coffee or not, I don't notice the difference. Like, so if you're having coffee after food and you're having it, either with something else or you've got enough food in your stomach, then it's not an issue. Or if it does give you a bowel movement, that's not actually an issue. But if you're using it to have your bowel movement or it's giving you loose stools, then that's an issue. Like, if I used to have a coffee and then straight away I'd be on the toilet and I'd be having like diarrhea from it, because my gut was so inflamed and sensitive that it could not handle not only the caffeine, but also the tannins. Because if I had a black tea, I would have the same issue. So there's actually things called tannins in it, which generally are not an issue for people. But if you've got a highly sensitive gut, because there's all these other things going on, then you want to pull it off and go, you need to either stick to herbal tea or decaf coffee. It's the caffeine doing it, until you sort of fix that gut, and then have it back in, but do it every 2nd or 3rd day. And then as you build up your tolerance daily. But yeah, if you're using it to replace food, highly as the exercise stimulus, I don't mind it as an exercise stimulant, but if you're having it in like 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon because you're so exhausted and it's the only thing that's getting you to exercise, then I'd be like, red flag, because that's stuffing your hormones up as well. And if you wake up and you are bone exhausted and the only reason you're functioning is because you're having a coffee, massive red flag. You need to get off caffeine for a while.
Do it, girls. As scary as it sounds, it will help you. Because to be honest, like, I remember I go through stages where I will come off coffee and then come back to it a few months later. And you know what? Not just because we get used to, like, coffee is amazing. We know how great coffee is. But as you mentioned, it has its cons and it has its pros. So if it's doing more damage to you, then yeah, maybe you need to like break up with it and then come back to it later on.
Yeah, and you appreciate it so much more. Like, I've been off coffee for 4 or 5 months now, and I'm now just starting to have one, like just a single shot every 2nd day or something. And I appreciate it, but I also feel it so much more. Like, I'm like, wow, I have one, and I'm like, one is almost too much. Yeah, you're just buzzing. So I really got to time it that I've eaten a big meal or I'm about to go do something, because otherwise I just get all like jittery. And you also realize that so many women think they've got anxiety, and it's actually just their coffee, and they cut coffee for a month and they're like, wow, I'm just so much more calm. I'm not trying to do 10 things at once. I'm like, I know, it's actually, we become so used to it that we don't even realize what it's doing to us.
And it just shows, like, again, like in correlation to the coffee, but also the gut health, like you're so used to being bloated and gassy and irritated with certain foods, but till you actually find the root cause of it, you're never going to know what actually is going on.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most frustrating things, is that women just go, oh, but this is like normal. Like, I'm used to being bloated when I go out, or I eat out with the girls, or we have a cheese and wine platter or whatever. I'm like, yeah, if you overeat, sure, you're going to feel bloated. Like, I get that. But every day, it's actually not normal. Like, you should feel comfortable after eating. Like, it should not be an issue. There shouldn't be pain. Your pants shouldn't be super tight. Like, I'm like, there's actually normal. And that's the same with your period symptoms, right? Breast tenderness, fluid retention, mood, like massive mood swings, not just little dips, but that stuff, or heavy, clotty, painful periods. That is not normal either. It may be common, but it's not normal, and it shouldn't be that way. And when you start to work on your gut health and those other factors around those hormones, and even if it's just some herbal supplements to change the way your body deals with your hormones or moves them around the body, then you start to notice these differences and you go, oh, actually, I didn't know my period could be so nice.
Yeah, it's so true. Literally every symptom has a trigger to it, and it's just you identifying what is going on. And obviously, if you're unable to identify with yourself, then hit up Sheradyn. Like, she's your go-to woman.
Yep.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. We've covered so much. I feel as if I've wanted to chat about everything that we want to chat about. However, is there anything else that you're wanting to finalize today's podcast with?
Yeah, I guess just that thing of get to the root cause. Like, don't believe everything you hear from your GP, even though they are great. Like, the medical system is there to keep you alive, and the medications and the antibiotics and things they give out definitely have a role, but they have a time and a place. And I don't believe that birth control is the answer to things. I also don't believe it's the enemy, but I also think contraception has a time and place as well. And if you're using it for, to cover acne or heavy painful periods or irregular periods or those kinds of things, I think it's really problematic. If you're using it to not fall pregnant, that's a different discussion completely. So I think that side of things, please keep looking. Follow people like Lara Bryden or Dr. Jolene Brighton and some of these leaders in the women's health industry, which will make a real big change to the way you look at things. And then when it comes to your gut symptoms as well, again, don't just believe your GP saying you've got IBS, because IBS to me is a BS diagnosis. It's not good enough. There's other things going on. And I just want you to keep pushing and learning. And even if that means, you can't afford to run the testing right now, go download the Monash University app and play with FODMAPs a little bit, and, look into SIBO breath testing, some of those cheaper ones, and just start looking at other things that are out there rather than just playing the guessing game with food or always feeling like shit, because there's so much more to it.
So much more. I love that. Sheradyn, before we head off, where can our listeners find you? How can they work with you?
So head over to the Empowered Hormones podcast, especially if you want to learn about stool testing and those things more in depth. I've got some awesome episodes around that. So that's just Empowered Hormones with Sheradyn Dekker. And then otherwise, I'm active on my Instagram. So that's Sheradyn_functional nutrition. And just hit me up in the DMs there, because I love chatting.
Love chatting. Yeah, we all love a good chat, don't we?
Yes.
I love that. Well, girls, I hope you got a lot from today. And if you did, please make sure that you screenshot, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Sheradyn, tag myself. And then till next time, take care of your gut health and don't dismiss any symptoms that you're experiencing.